All right, we're going to go straight to our interview. You wouldn't believe what's been going on behind the scenes, trying to connect to Ambassador Macharia Kamau. It's hectic behind the scenes, but we have got him, and he tested positive for coronavirus about 2 weeks ago. He joins us live right now on Skype. Ambassador, good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, actually. I'm over the worst.
Yeah, but you've been through a rough patch, haven't you?
Well, it is COVID, and I was symptomatic, so clearly I had to deal with the symptoms that I was facing. But I was very clear in my mind because I have been working on this matter for quite a while, and I have been reading a lot about it. I have been watching a lot about it, so I was very clear what kind of circumstances that one would face. What is interesting, of course, is that what people have been saying is very true about the COVID. It's very much like a malaria, like severe flu. The difference being that it lasts, instead of 4 or 5 days, it lasts 14 days. It keeps reoccurring. One day you feel you're okay, and then the next day it takes you out, and you sort of have to, regain your strength again. So it's been a very interesting experience indeed, yes.
Balozi, I've been twisting your arm the last week or so trying to get you on the show because we need a face to this virus because people are still in denial. I'll tell you what, I was tested due to contact tracing. How did you know that you were positive?
We did a general testing at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This was for our own precautionary purposes. And I happened to be one of those people who tested positive. But before that, I was already feeling a little bit off. And I had stayed home, in fact, because as we all know, the general lesson is that if you feel any flu-like conditions, if you feel like you're getting malaria, or if you feel like you're just feeling a little off, don't go to work. Don't mingle with the family. Isolate yourself and get tested. This is the wise thing to do, which is what I did. And it turned out that indeed I was positive, although I had no expectation why I should be, because I had been taking all the necessary precautions, using a mask, isolating. But the nature of our work is that, you do come into contact with a lot of people. You have to move between spaces. Even though we did reduce radically the number of people who are in the office, we are a public-facing ministry. And so we have to be out there in contact. And therefore, I think somewhere along the line, I must have gotten exposed. The rest is history.
Balozi, you said you're symptomatic. I am asymptomatic. Tell me, what's been your worst day?
My worst day was the Monday after the testing. In other words, a week into my symptoms. So let's say my symptoms started 2 weeks ago Monday, let's say. And you spend a week where you're feeling off, you're tired, you wonder why you're not coming back, like you should. I like to jog, I like to keep fit, I don't want to brag, but I want to push out 50 press-ups, and suddenly at 20 you feel you're running out of energy. You're running and you're doing your usual 4 or 5 kilometer run. After 2 kilometers, you feel you're wiped out. So I began to feel very tired during the first week. But by the second week, they say, by the way, the second week is the worst week. And in my case, it was. And on that Monday, I get up. I always got up every day because the other lesson is that you must always get up. Don't stay in bed. Don't play dead because COVID will take you over. Be active. It's like having a bad flu. You want to remain reasonably active. And I came to breakfast, and I suddenly, in the middle of breakfast, had a temperature spike that shot way up. And I began feeling dizzy and delirious. And according to the person who was helping me at breakfast, I actually passed out for a few seconds. And I remember not being totally coherent. And I sort of looked around and thought, oh, what was that? But it's like having a severe hot flash. Anybody who's had malaria will tell you, bad malaria that is, will tell you that there are moments where you're so overtaken by the fever, or you're so overtaken by the hot flashes or the cold sweats that you lose a little bit of consciousness. So that happened to me on that Monday. And I remember just picking myself up slowly, putting myself on the couch and letting myself recoup. And within 2 hours, I was okay enough to call and speak. But I was very clear in my mind that my conditions were not severe enough to warrant hospitalization. I had been spoken to by the medical doctor, and the doctor had said, unless you have a very high temperature, or unless you have a severe cough or uncontrolled sneezing or any kind of condition, shortness of breath, so you can't breathe. If you're just feeling hot and cold and just feeling uncomfortable and weak, stay home and take very good care of yourself. There are certain things you should do, which is what I did. I took my lemon drink, which I keep next to me. That's lemon, ginger, and lemon, ginger, garlic. And garlic. Yeah, you know it because I've told you about 100 times, haven't I? And I keep taking that. I eat very, very well. I've been taking out of soups. Soups are amazing. When I was in America, you remember, Jeff, flus were very serious. They're very serious in the northern temperatures. Winter is full of flus. In fact, the Canadian ambassador called me and said she wanted to send me a chicken soup. And I said, oh, isn't that funny? Because I have one boiling right now as we speak. Because it's what people who live in very cold climates and who get flu use to treat themselves. And it works. So I've been on chicken soup, oxtail soup, very good food, salads, my sister's concoction. My sister Ruth prescribed this for me, and it's working. And then, of course, doing very mild exercises so that your body knows you want to be alive and you want to be out there.
Yeah, Balozi, I'm drinking my hot water, lemon and garlic as we speak, and you're right. Let's go back 8 months. You were running in New York Central Park when Kenya was bidding for a seat on the United Nations Security Council. You were there. You were so fit. I mean, it's almost embarrassing for us who were trying to cover that stuff. Did you feel how... who's in good shape? Did you think it was a little unfair?
Unfair? Oh, no. I hope you can hear me, Jeff, but it was absolutely not unfair. In reality, many people, it's like flu, okay? So when the flu season comes, many people get the flu. This is normal. It's so common that we take it for granted. If you see somebody sneezing or coughing at the office, you don't even think twice about it. Well, it's the same thing, and it's going to pick up now. So this was not unpredicted. This was perfectly predictable. So people are going to see many, many more of these cases. What is different here is two things. One, it's very, very contagious. So you don't want to be sitting around the office or hanging around your family members if you're coughing or sneezing. You don't want to do that because you just infect everybody. But more importantly, and probably what is really worrisome, is that COVID kills at a much higher rate, so you want to be careful for those people with comorbidities. Now that just sounds like tough talk, but really what it means is that if you have high blood pressure, or if you have another disease that you're battling with, a cancer or hypertension or something else that's wrong, you probably want to be very careful not to get COVID, because it's very opportunistic. And in the treatment of COVID, which, by the way, there is no real treatment except, your concoctions. If they begin giving you other medicines, then you become very susceptible and you become very ill. So this is what you want to avoid. And so my message to everybody is that there's nothing to fear here except fear itself. It's you that you have to fear, how you will react. But I think if you're rational, if you take care of yourself, I worked every day, Jeff. Every single day, work was brought home, and I went through it, and I was happy that it was sent here because it kept me going and it kept me feeling purposeful. I did mild exercises every day. I mean, the most I walked was 4 kilometers, I remember, just around the compound, just round around, just to remind my body that I'm still here. So this is nothing to fear unless you have other complications, in which case you absolutely have to be very careful.
Okay, let me ask you this, Balozi. You've been working from home all this time. You're going to have to eventually go back to Foreign Affairs on Harambee Avenue. How do you think your colleagues will treat you when you get back? Also, you're going to have to be flying all over the world as the PS for Foreign Affairs and International Trade. Are you looking forward to that? You think there's going to be stigma?
Well, let me tell you something. There is more COVID out there than there is in Kenya. So my big advantage is wherever I go, there's probably more reason for people to infect me than for me to infect them. But the reality is that I don't have it anymore. Once I'm cleared of it, I am free of it. And in fact, I am at an advantage because I joined the herd immunity. You know, there are those of us who are now going to build up a certain measure of immunity because we've had this disease. You know, you never get the same flu twice, they say. You may get a different strain of flu, but you don't get last year's flu twice. Because once you've had it, your body knows what it is, it knows how to fight it. I have had COVID-19, and therefore I can fight it. My system knows how to fight it. Now, there are different strains of COVID-19, so I may get a different strain, but it will not have the same impact as I've had already because my body already recognizes the disease. So I'm at a very big advantage. Will people have stigma about me? No, because I am not infectious. In fact, I am the one who should be worrying about those who haven't had COVID because they are likely to get it and they are likely to reinfect me or my loved ones. So COVID is not like a disease which you can get and pass on and it stays in your body and you're in for it. It's a flu. It's a flu-like condition. So you don't have to worry that you have it. In fact, you should be celebrating that you're now part of the herd immunity, which is the way I feel.
Very well put, Balozi. Final question here, sir. A lot of your colleagues in government are in denial and possibly, many of them have the virus, but they don't want to come out. What do you tell them?
Well, first of all, I'm not so sure that's a 100% correct statement. I don't know where you get your facts from. But listen, I think everybody is dealing with the psychology of disease. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's HIV or hypertension or cancer. You don't want your business being discussed out there. I understand that. But in the case of this disease, it's better to be vocal about it, which is why I have been tweeting about it, sharing it with my colleagues. In fact, I did my own contact tracing, you know, called everybody and said, hey, you know, did I bump into you? And I don't see a lot of people, so I only had like 10 people to call. So I called them up and said, we met somewhere. You probably want to go get checked and make sure that you're okay. Most of them were very happy. They called me back and said, wow, thanks, man. I'm going to go take care of myself now. And, you know, except one who, by the way, turned out that he already had COVID and it was at the tail end. So when he went to get tested, he realized he was asymptomatic and, in fact, was at the tail end of his infection, which was very interesting. Now, I didn't say you're the one who, you know, made me sick or something like that. I simply appreciated that he took care of himself and his family. So my view and my sharing with everybody is to make people feel comfortable. It's a flu that happens to have 10, 14, sometimes 21, even 35-day infection period. You can be sick for a long time. You know, you're feeling lethargic, out of energy, vulnerable. Ni kama malaria, lakini haiponi upesi, unaona. You just don't take your tablets and 4 or 5 days later you're okay. You struggle with it for quite a while. And like I said, there's for a very small number of people, the chances that you can become very severely ill. But that's because of the other things that are bothering your body, which have now interacted with the COVID. And together, they make a deadly mix. But in reality, my message to everybody, don't worry about this thing. If a 62-year-old man like me can beat COVID and without even much effort, really staying home, eating well, drinking your concoctions. By the way, the only medicine I took was panadol, which, by the way, I took every 4 hours, because if you don't, you feel very, very ill. You have a headache, you feel like you're just not well. Now, for you to become well, you need to be feeling well. You need to be psychologically in a strong space. So Panadol, and don't take those high powerful Panadol, just regular Panadol every 4 hours, just so that you feel healthy and strong and you feel positive, so that you can eat, you can talk, you can relax. It really does help. And I, of course, I kept my mask about me. Funnily enough, I sleep with my mask these days. This is how, and the reason for that, oddly enough, is that the first day, somewhere in the first week, I began to get a little scratchiness in my throat. I woke up in the morning, I thought I was going to get a little scratchy. And I realized I'd slept with my mouth open. You know how it is when you're really wiped out. So the next day, I wore my mask. And I tell you, it worked for me, because the next day, I realized I didn't have that feeling. And I have never had a problem with coughing. And in fact, some of my own friends who have gotten sick are coughing, and they're still coughing. And my encouragement to them is take care of your, airways, so that you don't get infected in any way. And one great way to do so is to use a mask. Everybody needs to keep their mask on at all times. It's really important.
Balozi, did you just say you're 62? Goodness gracious me. Looking good,
I'm
man.
going to be 63, bro.
What? When's your next test?
I think I had one yesterday. So I need a second one to, give me the all clear. And that should come up around, I guess, in the next 2 or 3 days. I don't know. I'll have to ask the MOH guys. But, they're doing a great job out there. Kenya, for all the self-criticism we have, I'm very, very happy that this is happening to me here. I have friends, other ambassadors, by the way, who got sick in New York, and they had a very lonely time of it, Jeff, a very lonely and bitter time of it in the winter. And, and we were supporting each other. And I remember thinking to myself, I am so glad I'm in Kenya. The weather is great. The people are great. You have people to support you. There's chicken in plentiful. There's good oxtail you can drink, lemons and fresh fruits. I mean, really, it's like paradise. So in many, many ways, I've been great. And I've come through. I tell everybody who is symptomatic, self-manage yourself. Don't panic. If you have conditions like, your heart is beating too fast, or your oxygen levels change. And by the way, you see this little thing, I don't know if you can see it. Somebody gave me this, a colleague of mine called Fred Ndegwa, not a senior colleague, gave me this at the office, and he sent this over to me. And and it's a little gizmo which you press over there and stick your finger in there, and you can see very, very quickly. I don't know if you can on television. It begins to measure out your condition, and it gives you your heart rate, and it gives you your oxygen levels in your blood. And if you don't go below 60 or for your heart rate, and if you don't go too high, or if you don't go over, see it's 95 for my oxygen levels, you're in great shape. So you don't have to panic, and you check yourself and you're good to go. So people don't need to burden the hospitals, because, Jeff, what we don't want is everybody who gets like Macharia to rush to the hospitals, overburden the hospital system, insist on being hospitalized. And in the process, the really sick then won't have a place to go. Because there's 20%, maybe even less actually, of the 20% of the population that will get sick. I am part of that 20%. There will be another 20% who will get really sick and require hospitalization. And so we're talking, somewhere in the order of about 10,000 people at any one time. And for them, they need the best care that Kenya can provide. And we don't need to burden hospitals and doctors with our people like me, who are actually quite strong, quite healthy, quite able, and who can manage themselves with good food, with good rest, and with light exercises, and with a lot of love from loved ones.
Well, Balozi, I think I'm going to borrow that gizmo from you next time I see you. Thanks so much for your time. We wish you a quick recovery. All the very best, my friend.
Jeff.
Thank you for coming on and telling your story.
You can afford this thing, Jeff. It's 3,000 shillings. You can relax.
Thanks, Balozi. Have a good night and get some rest. Good to see you.
All right. Good to see you too.
That's Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary, Ambassador Macharia Kamau there, telling us his story, how he's coping with COVID-19. We're going to take a quick break, come back. We still have a bit of news to go and some sports. And then Dr. Lois Ombajo. She's a senior lecturer at the University of Nairobi. She also happens to be the head of the Infectious Diseases Unit at the Kenyatta National Hospital. What is her take? Coming up. Keep tweeting at Queen Angus Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag is JK Live. JK Live takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.